Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this record today, which is More Songs About Buildings and Food by Talking Heads. So yes, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album's tracks in detail. So this was Talking Heads' second studio album, released on the 14th of July in 1978. So it was the first of three albums the band would make with Brian Eno. They met after Eno attended one of their gigs in London. He was quite taken by the band, and they kind of then met up and just got on really well. Had the same kind of interests in kind of music and both wanted to explore new sounds and just got on really well. So it was recorded in the Bahamas at Compass Point Studios. This studio I think was apparently quite a cheap studio, so they could kind of spend a lot of time in the studio recording, experimenting, which they perhaps wouldn't have been able to afford to do if they'd stayed, say, in New York. This album was also relatively commercially successful as well. It was a bit of a breakthrough for the band, reaching number 29 in America and going gold, and in the UK reached number 21 here. And critically, the album is also relatively well acclaimed, both at the time and also retrospectively. It was ranked at number 4 in the NME for their albums of the year list in 1978, and then subsequently has been included on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums list. So anyway, I will try to go over my vinyl copy of it here. I can't remember what sort of copy this is. I think it's it says it's a German copy, this one here, but it's in lovely condition, this here. I'm not sure if it's an original one, mind you. There's the cover there, which I really like, and only found out when I was preparing for this video, that is actually made up of 529 individual Polaroid photos there. So that's why they have this kind of funny, slightly deformed look to them. But I think it's a really cool cover. And then the back cover there is just a picture of America. And this again is also quite interesting. This was taken from, I think, the first one of the first satellite images, the first composite satellite images made up of I think about 1,000 individual sort of photos. So that's pretty cool there. And then links into the last track of the album, The Big Country. This particular copy doesn't have any fancy inner sleeve of it. It's just a plain inner sleeve, and it is on the usual Sire Records label there for Talking Heads albums. So anyway, I will just now go over each of the album's tracks in detail. I'll score each song out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So it kicks off with the track Thank You for Sending Me an Angel, which is a bit of a throwback, I think, to their debut album in terms of its kind of sound. It's quite a ramshackled kind of song, a little bit I guess messy a little bit, it's a very immediate start to the album, just with this very frantic kind of burst of energy. Chris France's galloping drums, and then kind of Burns Burns acoustic guitar stabs as well on it. Lyrically, the song perhaps could be about a child, perhaps, he's sort of singing, thank you for sort of, blessing me, with a child, and sings, you can walk and talk just like me, goes the song. I mean, it is just a burst of energy, to kick off the album. Probably not a song that I would necessarily play, in isolation of the album, but one that I think works, quite well, on here. Next song up on the album is called With Our Love. Now, this is probably one of my favourites on the album, actually. I think it really feels like a proper transitional track for Talking Heads, and that's a kind of key theme of this album. It's a transitional album from 77 to Fear of Music. This album very much kind of combines the best bits of both of those albums. So this one, it retains that kind of frantic rawness off their debut, but with a much more kind of polished production on it. And there's just so much going on like on like this track, from like its kind of funky like introduction riff to like the really sort of tasteful and sophisticated synth touches like on like the chorus, that like have they forgotten what this all means bit. And then Byrne's vocals very dynamic. He's using his voice in like so many like different ways, and there's lots of kind of different sort of like sections like on like this song, like which I all think work really well together. Next up on the album is called The Good Thing. Now this one is a slightly lighter of touch kind of track, a little bit more, like the guitar's a little bit more kind of tinny, kind of sort of like high end like kind of sound like on them, like, but just gives it a real kind of light and like lightness of touch for me, and then like vocally as well, Byrne is singing like in like a much kind of softer vocal style for like the verses. Chorus like is a bit more built up. You get these kind of deadpan harmony vocals, which are done by Tina Weymouth and I think a couple of the secretaries of like the studio. So they kind of has this kind of quite sort of deadpan, slightly like out of tune like kind of vocal like on like the chorus, which is quite interesting. And then again, the song goes through like a few different changes. I particularly like the ending like off it, where there's a kind of like, it's like a bridge section but kind of more like an outro, because I don't think there's anything that comes after it, and there's kind of fun hand claps and again some interesting like Eno kind of touches like on it like as well. And the lyrics on this are, quite positive, sort of, I guess, feel-good lyrics, but sort of, filtered through kind of David Byrne's, like, kind of, like, idiosyncratic mind, like, with his sort of, like, sideways touch, like, on it, like, he sings, like, skills overcome unfavourable conditions, a straight line exists between me and the good thing, I have found the line, and its direction is known to me, absolute trust keeps me going in the right direction. So, like, all round, like, a really, like happy like positive song there. Okay, next up on the album is called Warning Sign. Now, this one is a lot more of a kind of Eno kind of production number, like I'd describe this one as. Various kind of vocal distortions and treatments like on like Byrne's voice. It feels to me a little bit, it's definitely one of the weaker moments like on the album. It's quite a meandering track. And one which definitely I think hints at the kind of very paranoid kind of nature like of like Fear of Music. Lyrically, Byrne has described this as a decadent song with kind of images of people kind of like kind of high like on drugs and kind of like being like quite sort of like paranoid, like at like sort of like a party kind of thing, and generally being quite like indulgent kind of behavior sort of thing. And then it's kind of got like this like quite paranoid lyrics like, hear my voice, move my hair, I move it around a lot, but I don't care what I remember. I mean, it's really not one of my favourites like on the album. It's a more kind of like quite like an experimental, daring track. They're definitely moving on like their sound, but again, it's just not one that I would necessarily play out with the album. Next one's probably the most, I guess, poppy, accessible moment like on the album. It's called The Girls Want to Be With the Girls. Now, this is, a really fun, like upbeat, like number here. Again, a lot of like good, like Eno production thrown in. I think like some like the synth work, like in like the chorus, like is like really clever. I like the instrumentation like on like this track, and the lyrics are a little bit abstract, I suppose. I mean, I think a lot of people like interpret this as being about, well, possibly like lesbians, basically, like the girls want to be with the girls sort of thing. But it's a general kind of song about, like that kind of themes of, I guess, the battle, like, of, like, the sexes, kind of, like, that sort of, like, idea, like, on, like, this one here. So, no, I think it's a really, really, really good song, very catchy, again, and, just really well produced. And then closing off side one, we get Found a Job, which is probably one of the more popular tracks like on the album. It was on the Best of Talking Heads CD. I don't think it was a single though, but it's definitely like one of like the more popular tracks like on the album. It's a kind of strong narrative based song, this one here, about a couple like Bob and Judy, who are kind of fed up with like what's on TV. Like they're kind of like, there's nothing on tonight, she said, like sort of thing, and so they basically actually make up their own TV show, and it then gets commissioned and becomes a hit. I mean, personally, lyrically, it's maybe a little bit kind of, I guess, far-fetched a little bit. It's a kind of sort of fantasy kind of story that, like just wouldn't ever happen, like in like reality sort of thing. And the song personally for me maybe drags a little teeny tiny bit like as well. I think kind of like the ending of it like is like maybe like a little bit too long, but it's a decent track that I found a job. Like I do like the track, but it's far from a Talking Heads classic for me. Okay, and then we flip over to side 2 of the album, which kicks off with Artists Only, which is another one of David Byrne's, like one like the more weirder, wackier tracks like on the album. Apparently, this one actually predated like their debut album. Like I think there's a couple of tracks. I think this one and possibly Stay Hungry as well later on, like were both like written before their debut album. So they do like this one like in particular feels like a bit like if it wasn't quite good enough for like the debut, why are they kind of recycling it here? Which is, I guess, a fault with a lot of second albums, and you know that does kind of creep in like to this album like as well. I mean, the song itself is really frantic. There's a lot of kind of tempo changes and tension like in like the song, kind of like dueling guitars like through it. Tina Weymouth's really forceful bass part, but it just feels a bit too kind of art schooly, a bit like immature as well. You know, it's kind of got that kind of New York art school kind of feel to it, a kind of but then also like I think lyrically is kind of rallying against sort of seeming to sort of teach creativity. He sings like, I don't have to prove that I am creative, all my pictures are confused, he sings on it. So yeah, it's just all around a bit of a crazy song. Really have to be again like in like the mood to like enjoy this track. Next up is called I'm Not In Love. Now this one again is another really full-on song here. The introduction, like instrumentation on this, like begins with like a really good like little guitar riff, and then goes into a really solid groove. Really reminds me quite a bit of Life During Wartime from the next album, just with its kind of like the rhythm like of like the verse, but then the kind of chorus goes in a completely different direction. It becomes quite kind of stop-start herky-jerky kind of style, and again Byrne is using the full range like of like his voice like on this one here, going from kind of whelping like in like the verses to like almost this kind of whispery vocal like in like the chorus. Lyrically, again, it's got his kind of like eccentric look like at like relationships, like like human connections, like with like the lines like feelings, take it easy baby, don't let your feelings get in the way, I believe someday we'll live in a world without love, which is quite a line, and again it's really ambiguous like on this, like, you know, how much he is, you know, meaning these lyrics, or how much he is actually just kind of playing a character, just having fun, or being like a bit like irreverent. So no, like I'm Not In Love, like again, like an interesting song certainly, but again probably not one that I would necessarily play like in isolation off the album. Next up is Stay Hungry, which a bit like I'm Not In Love, you know, is again another song about kind of relationships, but this one is perhaps a bit more about the physical side, the golf-like relationships, like kind of like intimacy, describing the kind of process as almost quite mechanical. He sings like move a muscle, move a muscle, move a muscle, make a motion, make a motion, make a motion. It's quite repetitive, quite sort of structured, quite like onomatopoeic as well, in terms of like in terms of how it's sung, and like he's kind of like what he's singing about kind of like sort of like links in like with like the way that he's singing it. So I think it's really cleverly done. The intro section of the song is quite interesting, almost quite rhythmic in nature, again perhaps sort of foreshadowing like the next album's tracks like E Zimbra, like from like Theatre Music, and like again like Weymouth like contributing like an excellent bass line as well, and then the chorus veering off like in a different direction with more kind of playful synth touches on it. So yeah, it's quite a catchy, quite a complex song, but like sort of delivered like in like a small package there. So yeah, Stay Hungry for me would get an 8 out of 10. next track up on the album is the penultimate song, and it is Take Me to the River, which is a cover song, and it was the main single from the album as well. So it's a cover of like an Al Green song, and the Talking Heads on this one kind of slow the song right down, making it into like a swaggery, sultry kind of track, awash with kind of organ and kind of different like like electronics on it as well. It was the Talking Heads breakthrough song, really. Like it was a song that got them like onto like national television, like in like America, like as the song peaked at number 26. It's a really good version, this, like of Take Me to the River. It probably is, I think, for a lot of people, the signature version, like of the song. Builds in tension really well, and like again, Byrne's vocal like is fantastic. The middle eighth bit, that Hold Me, Squeeze Me, Love Me Tease bit, it's just such a release like off like the song. So no, it's a really good version. Probably slightly prefer the live Stop Making Sense version, like, however, but it's still a very good song though. So yeah, Take Me to the River will get an 8 out of 10.
I see the shoreline.
And then the album closes with a little bit of a damp squib for me, perhaps, with the song there, like The Big Country, which is, I guess it's a fun song in some ways. It's a kind of, country-esque kind of track, which is not very characteristic, like, of Talking Heads, but kind of Byrne is kind of describing sort of rural America, like he's sort of like observing it from the viewpoint, like off like an airplane kind of thing, and then kind of like looking down on it, but then stating very clearly, like in like the chorus, that he wouldn't want to live like in such a dull kind of backwards place. He sings like they grow it, in those farmlands, they bring it to the store, they put it in the car trunk, and then they bring it home, and I say I wouldn't live there if you paid me. So some people might say this song like is a little bit kind of snooty, kind of city boy, kind of like looking down like on like rural life sort of thing, but like again a bit like I'm not in love. It's kind of hard to tell like if he's being sort of genuinely serious here, or if he's just kind of like inhabiting like a character, or just being a bit like ironic and like as well. But overall the song like is a little bit like underwhelming. It definitely drags. I think it is the longest track like on the album. It's well over 5 minutes, this, and it doesn't really need to be that long, I don't think. So anyway, that's just come to the end of this album, and the overall score like it's getting is 76%. So I think this is a classic traditional album, and a kind of classic example like of what can be good with a second album, but also what some of her second albums, I guess, shortcomings can be like as well. It retains some of like the idiosyncratic and quite raw nature like of like their debut album. Like the albums would get more polished like as like they went on, but this one it feels like a really good balance between the two. There's also many examples on here like of like the band like expanding their sound, so things like With Our Love and The Good Thing, like Artists Only like as well, like they're going in slightly different directions like on here. The problem for me though is it maybe just feels a little bit like unfocused, and also the fact that they are going back to material that just wasn't good enough for like their debut album means that there are definitely some like weaker moments like on here. In terms of where I think this ranks among the other Talking Heads albums, I'd probably say this is probably my least favourite of their first 5 or 6, I want to say that. Certainly got to like Little Creatures, I would say. It's maybe on a par with Fear of Music, because I'm not massive on that album either. Like for me, Talking Heads debut's amazing, Speaking in Tongues like is amazing, Remaining Light is great, and Little Creatures has some really good stuff like on it like as well. So this one, kind of mid-ranking Talking Heads album for me overall. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed my review of more songs about buildings and food there. I'd be interested to know what you think of this album down below in the comment section, and I'll see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.